This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. I warned people at the top of the show that some changes were coming. There you are. New music. I really like it. I was jamming out over here. But anyway, Avram, we've got more AI stuff going on since, as we were talking about in the last segment. That is our topic du jour right now.
Yes. So I want to talk about a couple of things, but most of all, I want to talk about something called JARVIS. So JARVIS is Microsoft's new. I'm looking up because I may have a demo running that I could show you. May being the optimal word. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So only something I've been working on for 2 hours because I had something working before. But anyway, let's start by talking about what it is and why it matters. So Microsoft researchers wrote a paper that they published recently about, they actually only use the word JARVIS for the name of one of their projects, but everybody, the name of their GitHub page, but everyone's calling this JARVIS, I guess because they like, the name, because it reminds them of Marvel. Anyway, so the idea is that one thing people don't think about enough when they're thinking about AI is that there's a lot of models out there. There's ChatGPT, which has gotten all the attention, and Bing Chat are based on one large language model called GPT 3.5, and now it's upgraded to GPT 4 in some places. But that's just an LLM, a large language model, which works with text. But there are thousands of models out there that are good at doing very particular things. There are some models out there that are good at analyzing images. There are other models out there that are good at creating images. There are models out there that can analyze sound and others that create sound. There are models out there that can analyze video and create video. There is a system that I was reading about yesterday that I think is going to come into beta, where it's just pure text. Well, NVIDIA demonstrated one, and I think there's going to be another system that's going to be open where it'll just be, this is not JARVIS, this is something else, text to video. So you'll say, NVIDIA showed a demo of show me a stormtrooper vacuuming on a beach, and they got a little video of a stormtrooper vacuuming on a beach, and it's photorealistic. And I don't know if they cleaned it up, but it looked really good. So there's a lot of models out there. JARVIS is the one JARVIS is the one framework to rule them all. What you do is it creates a chat bot or another interface where you can ask the bot to do something, and it will go out kind of behind the scenes and show you what it was, what models it used to accomplish the task. So it can, you can feed it an image and say hey, for example, you could feed it here. Actually, I have it running, so I'm going to show you. And hopefully, I at least have one example here that I already did, so it already works. So let's go look at this. So in my screen here, I am running. Can you see it? I'm running this under Ubuntu, but you don't need Linux to do it. I have a tutorial going up probably tomorrow about how you can try this yourself. This is, now they're deploying JARVIS into something called into a chatbot called Hugging GPT. What's with all the hugging? There is a site called huggingface.co. And this, believe it or not, is super important website for people who are developing AI. It is a repository of open source data sets and models. You can build stuff there and share it. And they have API keys, and just a lot of stuff runs through Hugging Face. And so they built a little model in it called Hugging GPT, and you can actually get it right on. Actually, it's probably the best place is just to go to Hugging. Microsoft has their own little section on Hugging Face, and you can go into Hugging GPT, and you can do it here with. You have to paste in. Now watch. Let's see if this works for me. It wasn't working for me before. You have to have an open API key, which you can get for free, although there's a limit to how much you can use it before you have to pay. And then you have to have a Hugging key. Well, look what happens. This usually takes a second or two, but tonight, I guess a lot of people are using it or something, and it's telling me it's going to take 3,000 seconds to read my API key. Well, do the math. That's going to be longer than we have here. So I installed a local copy of Hugging GPT on the virtual machine on my computer, so we can try this. So one thing that you can do is you can ask it about images. So you can ask it about images if you give it the URL of an image, or if you have some stored locally and you've got a local bot. So this one here is an example. It says, given a collection of these images, tell me how many zebras. So it asked about 3 images, right? As a human, we now know that there are 4 images. Based on the inference results, there are totally 3 pictures with 0, 1, and 2 zebras respectively. For the first instance, result of object detected task is a cat and a potted plant. For the second is a zebra, and it tells you exactly which model it used. Now, what's really interesting is it's not showing it in this local version, but in the web version that I had open before, when it works, it actually shows you like a little sidebar with showing you exactly what. Let me see if I have. Yeah, see. So it has a little sidebar showing you exactly the JSON or whatever it received from the different models that it was using. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you can ask. So what it's doing here is multiple things, right? It's looking at the image, it's identifying stuff, and then it's answering questions. Now, you can also, let's see, please generate a canny image based on this. Let's see how that works. These are all examples. So I'm doing things that are easy for it because they were tested. I have to say that an example that I saw for it, I've carefully considered your request and generated a canny image. Actually, I don't know what a canny image is because it looks identical. Well, the inference was just text description of herd of giraffes and zebras grazing the field. Unfortunately, the services were unavailable. Okay. Yeah, see that I've had that problem a lot where a service wasn't available. I've also had a problem where I fed it something and what it said it was not very good. So, for example, I fed it a picture of an SSD. So, for example, right? Let's say I took a picture here, which is a picture of it, and I got the URL, the image link, right? I got the exact URL of the picture, and I gave it to it, and I said, not just what is this would be just the most basic thing, but where can I buy this, right? So if this worked correctly, what it would do is it would identify that this was a Samsung 990 Pro SSD, and then it would go out on the web and find some links for it. Let's see what it does. Well, it did load the image. Sometimes I've given it URLs where it somehow was not able to load the image for reasons I don't understand. But last time I did this, it said something like it was a box. So once again, the hype and the reality, different things. But what I think is really interesting about all of this, let's see, what did it say? Based on the information, I can suggest you can purchase this item by finding a retail store near you or looking for it online. Oh, thanks. That's great advice. I've used the following models. Okay. The image can be found at your best bet for purchasing this item. What does that mean? It doesn't know what it...
Very helpful.
At least it knew it was electronics, I guess. I'm going to ask it what was in the image. Let's see if that sparks anything for it. There's a great example, though. I'll see if I will pull up the picture from their paper while we wait for this. And here's sort of what this is the paper that they wrote. This is actually no, this is the GitHub, and then there's actually a PDF of their like research paper. But in it is this chart, which is kind of fascinating. And it says that like ChatGPT is the controller here, and then it does task planning. What am I going to do? Model selection. Okay, which are the models I have access to? Doing the execution, and then sending you back a response. So here's one that actually, if I could do this, would be really interesting. It says, like, please generate an image where a girl is reading a book and her pose is the same as the boy in this example image. So they just fed it this picture of this boy. It found the boy in the picture, analyzed his, I don't know, pose, his gait, and then it showed her sitting and reading a book. I mean, I don't know if that, I guess that's accurate, but it's amazing. But you can see there was a lot of different things going on here. Reading a picture, analyzing the position of the person in the picture, and then outputting another picture. And of course, talking to you in text about, hey, I've got your request and I'm working on it, and here's my answer. So that's a lot of interesting stuff working together. Now, in the end, people who are just users of this technology probably aren't going to notice this, because this is how they're all going to work. They're all just going to work behind the scenes. If you're building your own bot, though, you might be more interested in this type of thing. Well, it was very confused when I asked what was in this image. The image contains a conversation between a user and an assistant. What?
I'm on board. Makes sense to me.
And then so again, these things don't work as well as we like to say. Like they don't do a very good job.
Is it telling you what it thinks the conversation was? Is that what that says?
Oh no, the inference results of the image was an error message indicating the path of URL. For the conversation, the inference result was a response of "Sure, I'll help." I have no idea. It's just bizarre.
I wonder if it's because it was a WebP image.
I've tried it with JPEGs. I don't think that's the case. But I think that's kind of an interesting thing that people can try. Speaking of trying things, while we're talking, I wanted to talk about. So I have an article that I put up earlier in the week about something called Baby AGI. Actually, I put it up just the other day about Baby AGI and AutoGPT together. We demonstrated on a previous show AutoGPT, which is a thing where you just give it a task and it kind of runs with the task for you. There's a similar piece of software called Baby AGI that I tested, and they both do a bad job. But one way in which they do a bad job is that they make stuff up. So here's a great example. I asked it, the AutoGPT, to create a website for a fictional web design company called Geek in Chief Designs. I just gave it a handful of requirements. I said 3-page website with a contact us page and a privacy policy that says we don't collect or sell any user information. I did not say, now, Geek and Chief Design doesn't exist, so there's no information on the web for it to get if it were going out to the web to get information. And here was the homepage that it designed. Welcome. We design and create websites that are customer-centric, mobile-friendly, and visually appealing. How would it know? Like, that's jargon that a lot of web design companies would use.
Yeah, that's what.
But that's not necessarily true, right? Geek and Chief Design provides websites and web applications development. Our team of experienced developers. What if it's just one person? Like it didn't. And part of what's going on here is they don't ask follow-up questions. They just, in the absence of information, they just make things up. So if you were hired to write, and by the way, this is its great web design. They put the /n in the HTML.
Nice.
But I think if you were asked to design a website for someone and they didn't and write the copy and they didn't give you much information, you would come back to them with a question. You'd say, well, what can you tell me about your organization? How many people are there? What do you do? These autonomous agents don't do that. And actually, even the regular chat doesn't do that. I don't know why, but the things are never in the absence of information, they will make things up instead of asking you for more. I guess the idea is to have the human do as little work as possible, but the end result is just lying. The other thing is the privacy policy that I asked it, and I asked it to create a privacy policy that said that there was no, we don't collect user information. It directly disobeyed that and wrote a privacy policy saying that we collect people's name, address, and phone number.
Well, that's helpful.
So it directly contradicted what I told it. So, you can't trust these things. You cannot trust them. They may get better, but part of the problem isn't the technology. It's the fundamental philosophy that we're going to have the machines operate independently as possible, not cite sources if possible, and not ask the human follow-up questions so we can just spit out whatever. Now, if you engineer a really good prompt, maybe you'll get what you want, but I told it to write a privacy policy that says that we don't collect user information, and it wrote one that said that we did because probably that's what it saw on other people's privacy policies. So what it believed it should say versus what I told it to say, it went with what it believed. That's a problem. So
it went with the statistically more common situation instead of the thing that you said.
Right. So one thing I've been trying to figure out is the right thing would be, can I create a bot that only answers questions based on information that I have fed it? Can I create one that will only say things that I approve of? And that's something I've been working on as a project. So here's a Python script that I've been using with a framework called LangChain. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do this on a large scale and make it work properly. But I fed it an article, which I have here in, this is an article on what is USB 3 that I wrote for Tom's Hardware. And I said, okay, let me feed it to the bot, and it loads. You can do this in MOS. You can have it do like thousands of pages, but I'm trying to figure out how to put it into a database, because otherwise the way this works is you'd have to load them every time you run the script, which is obviously impractical. And then you can feed it a question. I mean, you could turn this into a web, forum where a person would have a chat bot. So don't be put off by the, fact that that question is just written here. So I ask it, how fast is USB 3.2 Gen 2x2? And I run it, and it gave me an answer. It gave me the correct answer, right? And you can now. One of my problems though is this is using ChatGPT to So now let's ask the question that's not covered in my document, right? Why is the sky blue? Now, if this worked the way I want it to, it would say, sorry, I can't answer your question. But I think it's going to answer my question. So let's see. Never mind this embedded with DuckDB. That's part of the Python. The sky is blue because of the way sunlight interacts with the atmosphere. I have it, by the way, show sources for everything. That's something that this lang chain allows you to do, is to actually get the source. So that information is fine, except that's not what I want my bot to do. So I'm trying to figure out how to stop that. And the reason why I'm trying to figure out how to stop that is if it can answer a question that's outside the scope, then it can give you information even about our stuff that's outside the scope. Like, what if you ask about USB 3 versus USB 2, which isn't really covered in the document? And it starts to give you other information. That information could be wrong, something we don't want it to say. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of make my own bot that will use only the data that I give it. And apart from knowing the English language, which it has to know, will not give you information. If you ask it a question that's not covered in something that I fed it, it should say, sorry, I can't answer that question. That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I feel like that would be a decent bot to have. If I could create one that had like the sum total of all the Tom's Hardware articles or something in it, and then people could talk to it. Now, mind you, they still might not have a wonderful experience because they might ask it something that's not covered in one of the articles, or that sort of requires compiling knowledge from different areas. Like, what if it asks a very specific, like, I want a laptop that can, run Visual Studio well, and we don't have an article about just that. It may give you an answer that's not, great. So, but that's the problem that we have with all training data, except I would rather have it in an exclusion way where, okay, we're only letting in sources of data that we trust, versus, I mean, there was a story this week in the Washington Post about, they looked through, there's actually a web page, I think, on the Washington Post where you can see what websites were used to train. I'm not sure if it's train BARD or train GPT. And you can see that, like, there were a bunch, I mean, it was trained by everything. So it was trained not only by reliable sites, but by, very unreliable sources of information. It was also trained by very biased sources of information. It was trained by like Nazi sites and stuff like that, because they don't discriminate based on what the site is. They're just going out and grabbing everything. So, that's bad from a copyright and intellectual property perspective. I don't want them grabbing my stuff and using it to take traffic away from me, as we've discussed many times. But it's also really bad from a information reliability perspective. Like, if every piece of data is treated equally, then it has an equal chance of being the truth, then nothing is valid.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting situation. Washington Post wants me to sign up for an account to read the article.
I know, that's why I haven't gone in and done it myself, but I've seen other people have. Yeah. I don't know if there's another page you can go to view this training data. We found out that there was something like 0.0002% of the training data was Tom's Hardware, but almost everybody, when they put in their site, gets 0.0002%. So I'm not sure if that's an accurate number or just the number they give everybody. So
it'd be fascinating if it's just like,
but I guess
like that's the initial set value on the thing, and the math is going wrong, and so it never actually resets it, and it just gives you back 0.0002.
I mean, it doesn't even really matter what that means, whether it's 0.02% or 0.08% or whatever, because your data's in there, and all somebody needs to do is ask the right question, and they will get the data. The data may be plagiarism, as we've talked about before.
Absolutely.
Or the data may be misleading, or it may be a combination of misleading and plagiarism. So, so that's why I don't trust these things.
Yeah.
But there's, there's an opportunity to do something interesting. So like when the image recognition thing works, you can see that that's actually somewhat useful.
Sure.
I mean, somewhat, right? Like I don't. It managed to get the zebras, but almost everything else that I've tried to feed it that wasn't a specific example, it didn't do well. You know, one that I specifically saw somebody call out was feeding it a picture of balloons on a string and asking what happens if I cut the string, and it's supposed to say the balloons will fly away, but instead it says this is a kite, nothing will happen or something. So
Nice.
um, so it, but look, I can see image recognition getting better. We know image recognition gets better. There probably is better image recognition out there, and it's just not using the best model because it's probably using an open source model
Yeah.
that doesn't cost money.
Because I'll tell
Um,
you, I did. I got a demo. God, 2015, I think, of Watson's image recognition, and in 2015 it was impressive.
yeah, I mean, it can be good. Like image recognition can be good, and it can be bad, and it's not really clear to me. Like, I guess it's just how well trained the model is,
Yeah.
how much processing power you have. I mean, it's always somewhat of a parlor trick when I have something that runs locally. Because I mean, I've had ones I think we may have shown on this show. Like Nvidia sent me their like little Jetson Nano board a couple of
Yeah.
years ago and tried the image recognition on it, and it would be really funny because it would tell you that you were like a cow or something. Like it was completely wrong. Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
good chunk of the time, and this was an AI board that was made for this.
Right.
But and I'm not necessarily sure it was the board. It was probably the software that they had me using. Um, but yeah, I mean, it can be gotten right. Right. There's facial recognition software out there that can recognize it with some degree of accuracy, like real people in real places. So there's stuff out there, but as far as the things that people are running in the bots right now, they're not necessarily very impressive. But it really depends. I think we have to have a very skeptical. These things are trying to make the claim that they can do something as well as a person can, and they're operating on that assumption. And we have to treat that with a great deal of skepticism because there are things that a computer can do way better than a person. Um, but but we have to treat with skepticism how these are being used because it's dangerous to assume that they're going to work properly. Like
Yeah.
it's that but by playing with them, by trying to kind of, I think, restrict the data to known good sources, we can make something uh, that's usable and better. We just need to be really conscientious of testing it and making sure that it works we pick something that works for the task that we want it to, and we don't read into it that, wow, this can just do everything and I can ask it and it's just automatically going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. That's knowing the limitations is really the key. There are lots of them right now.
Right. Right. I mean, and one of the problems is people ask it things and it doesn't admit to limitation. Right.
Right.
Like it doesn't.
It's got that air of confidence that a teenager has, and it says
Yeah.
everything. It says everything with that. This is the case, and oftentimes it's not. We've watched Google's stock price plummet. You
Yeah.
know,
Sometimes.
right early on.
Yeah. But now, unfortunately, and I'm actually really um, irritated about this. It seems that we, as a, I don't know, media and a society, have kind of settled on these things don't work okay, but these things don't give wrong answers, but that's okay. And I, I, I don't agree with that at all. Like we have settled on the idea that we can settle for misinformation, inaccurate information, and that's old news. That was last month's news or 2 months ago news. Now they haven't fixed it. There's still lots of misinformation, and they're wrong most of the time. But that's okay because we've moved on now from that line of inquiry, and we just accept that we're going to get bad information and still act on it. Like, I don't think everybody realizes how bad the information is in this, and how wrong it can be making things up. You know, it's very dangerous. Did we talk about the last week about the guy who's a law professor who was named by, I think, Bing Chat as having committed an act of harassment that he never did?
I actually think it was Google, because I think I read about a
Oh, maybe it
lawsuit.
was
But yeah, we did
Yeah.
discuss that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So, like,
that's awful.
yeah. So defamation, uh, these things are defaming people. They're making stuff up. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very, very dangerous. Sometimes an error message is the best message you can get. Sometimes you don't want your web browser to fake a web page when you should be getting a 404.
Right.
And that's what this technology is doing right now.
Yeah.
But
and it's interesting. I told Danielle this years ago. We were, 2013, 2014. We were working on a project together, and we got an exception. And she's like, "Oh, that's not good." I said, "No, that's what I was trying to get. I wanted the exception. The error was the point."
Right.
Okay. And we went into why under certain circumstances that's what you want. You want the error. You want the exception. Sometimes that is the best thing you can get.
Yeah. I mean, so this is kind of sad now. But this is the rule we have with search engines, right? You never get zero results. You can search for something really weird, and you will get results. It'll just tell you, "I found something that wasn't quite what you asked for."
Right. I know you were looking for this particular recipe from this particular person, but here are pictures of giraffes. Will that do?
Right.
No.
Right, because they don't, because there's a business incentive for all these things to keep your eyeballs, to keep you there, rather than to just tell you the truth, which is, "I don't have the information that you want."
True.
Or, "I can't do what you ask." But anyway, I encourage folks. We have some articles about this on Tom's Hardware. I have an article right now about about why the autonomous agents, Baby AGI and Auto GPT, are interesting but flawed. And then I have one going up tomorrow about Jarvis, which I just showed you, and we stay on, and I hope to soon have one up about how to create your own chatbot, but which I've been able to do, even looking a little bit nicer than what I showed you. But I don't want to just show people that. I want to actually fix it so that you can't get information that's not from your source. Yeah. And that is the trick that I'm trying to pull off. And it seems that nobody wants that. They want, like, all of the tutorials and all the code I found about it is like, "Oh, just funnel this through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will give you an answer no matter what." And that's not what we want. So
it's the opposite of your goal.
Yeah, exactly. So trying to figure out. I'm kind of curious though, your opinion. If you had a chatbot, let's say we had put a chatbot on the homepage of Tom's Hardware, so people could ask relevant questions. If you asked a question that was outside the scope where we didn't have the answer, do you want to just pull the answer from somewhere else?
No. I like being on Tom's Hardware. I came to you for a reason.
Right. But that's the thing.
So,
I don't want
your input.
Right. The other thing is we can't vouch for the other information. Right. So if it just pulls something out of the internet, I don't know. I can't say whether I would, whether that makes me look good or bad.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So it could be very embarrassing. So anyway,
now, maybe if the answer happens to be on Tom's guide, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, we could, yeah. If we developed one for our site, then maybe we would have it backfill from other sites that we are part of our company and we trust. But I think the overall message is I wouldn't want it to just pull anything from
Right.
anywhere.
Yeah, because if you're putting it under your banner, and this is one of the things that we talk about when we do like podcast consulting and stuff. You want to be in control of the things that appear under your banner, right? If the logo on the top of the site says Tom's Hardware, you want more control over it than it going off and possibly pulling from some Nazi website or whatever an answer.
Yeah,
right. That's not what you want attached to the Tom's Hardware brand or the PLUGHITZ Live brand or whatever. You need more control than that.
Oh, the other thing that we've discussed, and I'll just leave it with this, is no Section 230 protection for chatbots, right? So if you had a search engine on your site and the search engine backfilled with results from Google, which I don't think I would like either, but if it backfilled with results from Google and one of the results was bad information, you have plausible deniability or whatever. You can disclaim responsibility. Oh, it's just a search result. But if a chatbot says it, that's publishing. So you're responsible for what the chatbot says.
Wow. That brings me back to, the difference between using a PIN on your phone and using Face ID or Finger ID from a legal standpoint of whether or not a cop can force you to unlock your device. Little oddities like that people just absolutely do not think about.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So anyway, so there's more you can read about this on tomshardware.com. I'm spending a lot of my time staying on top of it because not because I love this technology, but because I realize it's dangerous and I want to make sure I understand how to implement it and how it works really well.
You want to be out ahead of Skynet. Got it. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Well, Avram, as always, I appreciate it. That was fascinating information. I mean, at the just the Section 230 thing at the end, fascinating, worth all of it. So appreciate that, and I appreciate that you've been staying on top of this. I know it's like trying to nail down mud right now because everything seems to be constantly changing. But I appreciate you staying on top of it and keeping us in the loop. And I always look as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course hit the notification bell since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.